Welcome everybody to Geekvice episode 207, proving any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name's Morph, that man's Kip. Good evening, Kip.
Good evening.
We are back with another episode, and boy do we have some fun stuff to talk about today, so we're going to get right into it. But I don't know where we should start. Maybe we should start with just, we got to do a little bit of Black Panther because that came out this weekend. And Kip went and saw it. So, Kip, big overview, thoughts, ideas. Good, bad. Where do you rank it amongst your MCU favorites?
I'm going to place it at number 2.
Right.
The first Avengers movie just does it for me, but right after that is Black Panther.
That's impressive. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
It was... Okay, so I went into the movie with high expectations, and it beat those expectations. And that hardly ever happens.
Yeah, that's I mean, well, and that movie has been hyped so much, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail this week on it. Hoping next week we will, because I think next weekend I might actually be able to get to the theater and watch this, and we're going to take the whole family. We've talked about it. We've heard lots of, and that's the other thing. We've heard so many people who have taken their kids to go see this movie, and now granted the Marvel movies are never the, like, they're not the, they're not anywhere close to R-rated movies, let's put it that way. They've got some language, they've got some, some scenes that are probably questionable at times, but there's never a lot of blood in the movies. There's not a lot of they're just very middle of the road as far as I'm concerned, as far as who can see these movies. And but we've heard Black Panther is, right there with it. I was afraid it was going to be a little preachy, because I was afraid that it was going to miss the boat and get away from being a superhero movie and being more of a political, hey, here's our perfect chance to just show its affirmative action, But from what I've heard, it's not like that. Right?
It's not preachy at all. I guess the best way to put it is they recognized the, I guess, state of racism and things like that are going on today, but they didn't throw it in anybody's face, but they handled it really well.
Yeah.
And they handled it in a way that to show you that it works on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from what racism has been in the past. It's been awful. It's been horrible. I'm ashamed of it. But in today's climate, it is actually it's a both sides of the aisle issue, and it dealt with that. And I thought it handled it in such a way you didn't feel like you were being preached to. And it handled it in such a way that it didn't make you uncomfortable. It made you respect what they were doing. And it was truly an origin film. It was Black Panther, yes. It was his origin. But it was also like the origin of this new land, Wakanda. It's brought to us by being in a very poor third world country on the outside, but on the inside, it's the greatest place on earth. And it was a very good introduction into that. And um, the girl who plays his sister, she
Hmm.
was fantastic. Holy cow.
Well, I
She was so great.
I can't wait to see it. I'm really excited for it. I almost tried to squeeze in some time this weekend to try to get to the theater and watch it, but it was just I just didn't I ran out of hours in the day, and I didn't feel like going to the movie at 11 o'clock at night and trying to you know do that and then still get up to go to work on Monday morning.
Yeah, I
So
don't blame you. The theater, we saw it at like 12:30 on Saturday afternoon, and it was packed. I
yeah,
don't think there was an empty seat in the theater. I was worried because it was a bigger theater and a lot of people that there was going to be a lot of people moving around, a lot of noise, a big distraction. It was not that way at all. I think people were so enraptured with what was going on the screen. Nobody really moved or said anything. We all
that's
just sat
awesome.
there going, "Holy cow, I'm taking all this in."
Good.
So yeah, it's probably good you're going to see it this weekend instead of this coming weekend instead of the opening weekend because
Yeah.
you may not have gotten a ticket.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. The other thing that I'm doing is um, so a friend of ours who actually works with my wife, her and my wife were talking about Marvel movies and just movies in general, and she's a big Star Wars fan and has never really been a Marvel fan. But she's decided that her and her husband decided, they're going to start watching all these Marvel movies, but they're going to start watching them in chronological order. And so that got my wife and I talking about it. It's like, well, if we could watch these in chronological order, what order would we watch them in? What did we think they should fit? And me being the person who's seen all of them except Thor Ragnarok. Yeah, that's the only one I haven't seen yet. That and Black Panther. Those are the only two movies I haven't seen yet. I have Thor Ragnarok now, but I've pushed pause on watching it so that I could go back and watch all of these in chronological order. A lot of them my kids haven't seen yet either, so we're deciding to do that with the kids, and I will chalk one up for my streaming service that I use with my server here at the house. I use a program called Plex, and you know what is awesome about Plex? It allows me to create playlists of movies that I own. And so I have created a chronological order playlist that I can then keep adding movies to it and put them in any order that I need to keep track of them and also keep track of which ones we watched and which ones we haven't. So I did that this morning, and my kids didn't have school today because we got a crap ton of ice here in Kansas, and so we decided we were going to start this process, and we started watching Captain America: The First Avenger is our first one, and now we are tonight we got halfway through Iron Man, the first Iron Man, and my oldest Reese is loving them. Um, he's seen a lot of the movies. He's seen, well, I wouldn't even say a lot. He's seen a few of the movies, but he's always been interested in watching all the movies. But his younger brother has not, and so we haven't been watching them. But today Conley and I decided Conley wanted to play Mice and Mystics, so we broke out Mice and Mystics, started playing that. Reese turned on Captain America: First Avenger. We got about halfway through playing Mice and Mystics, and Conley looks at me and goes, hold on, Dad. I just want to watch this part." I'm like, "Do you want to just push pause on the game to finish the movie?" "Yeah, let's do that." So yeah, we watched the first Avenger. And now we're starting Iron Man, and the kids are loving it, and I think it's awesome. It's kind of fun to go back and rewatch some of these movies again, rewatch it with them, and then I can also like point out things like, hey, you hear what they said there? Remember that. And of course, it's not going to come into play now for like 3 or 4 movies because they're all out of, order. But hey, it'll be fun. Like I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the fun part of it.
it is. It is the fun part, and chronological order. It's got to be tough to put together if you're actually doing it not in the order they were
No, they're
pushed out, but in the order they were supposed to actually happen.
yeah, yeah. So the order that we've got is obviously you start with the first Avenger, and you don't have another Captain America movie for quite a while. Let's see. I should have had this pulled up already because that's what I
I don't know.
knew we were
Yeah.
going to talk about it. But why
It
would I have
wouldn't
it?
be our podcast if we were actually prepared. See,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way.
So you got to start with Captain America: First Avenger, and then we're going into Iron Man and Iron Man 2, because those kind of take place pretty close together, time
Is Iron
wise.
Man 2 where um holy cow, Scarlett Johansson shows up, or is that in the first one? I can't remember.
I think it's the second one.
So that would make sense to do it in
Yeah.
that order. Yeah.
Yeah. And then actually, where the next movie is The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton,
Which is the good Incredible Hulk
which
movie.
is the good one. It's not the Ang Lee version. But yeah, that Incredible Hulk movie kind of fits in. I think time wise, I think is kind of post Iron Man. They don't mention anything, but I think just timing wise, just setting and they're probably pretty close to each other. But and then after that we go Thor, and then we go into the Avengers.
Okay.
So, and I think by that point, everybody is introduced that is in the Avengers. So, um, Hawkeye is brought in the Thor movie, along with,
Right.
obviously with Thor, Scarlett Johansson, and, as Black Widow, Iron Man, obviously Captain America, the Incredible Hulk. You've got all of the characters then. And of course, Agent Coulson, uh, which is, he's in the first Iron Man movie and shows up in just. I think the only one of those movies he doesn't show up in is The Incredible Hulk. Um, so then from after the Avengers, we go Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Volume 2 back to back. Then we hit The Winter Soldier. Then we go the second Avengers movie, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Civil War, and then we'll go Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, being that I haven't seen Black Panther yet, I've just gone off of what I've read, and it sounds like Black Panther is actually would time-wise probably comes before Thor Ragnarok, but
Or they
again,
run at the same time.
or they could run parallel. So
Yeah, because it takes place right after Civil War, just like Thor does.
okay, so yeah, that all could just be right at the same time, and then of course Spider-Man: Homecoming is obviously sometime after Civil War. So it could be that, I don't know. Does Iron Man show up in Black Panther or Thor Ragnarok?
No.
So then you could even have Spider-Man: Homecoming, Black Panther, and Thor Ragnarok all running simultaneously.
You could. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
Thor Ragnarok, other than a couple of mentions, it's a standalone movie.
yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Well, but that's kind of the awesome part about these Marvel movies is that really all of them are standalone movies. You can it's just the little pieces and the little threads that kind of that connect them together, but they don't. If you've never seen any of the other movies and then you go watch a lot of a lot of the movies, Captain America Winter Soldier, you don't have to know anything about the first Avenger or the Avengers movies or anything else to go watch Winter Soldier and think that's a good movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean it in that sense. I mean it in the sense that the only thing that ties Thor Ragnarok to the rest of it is at the end of Civil War, the Hulk steals a jet and just leaves. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And where he went was
Gotcha.
where Thor Ragnarok takes place.
Gotcha.
But if you're willing to just think maybe this is where they originally found Hulk, or this just happened to be a side story, Hulk just took off one day, it could stand up and not be part of the universe, really.
Right. Okay.
Part of the big story they're trying to tell.
Sure. So yeah, that's what I've got going for me. That is according to Plex, it is all these movies together are 1 day, 11 hours worth of time. So
nice.
It's going to take me a little while to get through them. I probably won't get through them all before we go see Black Panther, but I will deal with that maybe by the time I get to where Black Panther should be, it'll be out on DVD and I can just add it back into the list and watch it again.
So for continuity's sake and just me being an ass, how much time in Civil War took place between when Black Panther's dad gets killed and then the final standoff in Civil War? The reason I ask is because Black Panther starts shortly after his dad's death and they get back to Wakanda and they go through the whole process of him becoming king. So it's not a lot of time had passed, maybe just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Since that scene in Civil War.
So really Black Panther could actually it overlaps with Civil War because I think there's quite a bit of time because the death of T'Challa's dad is I think there's quite a bit of time left in that movie as far as like
I think so too.
Chronological time.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Yeah.
But yeah. To me, it seems like even though it wasn't mentioned in Black Panther, it could have been going on at the same time Black Panther was dealing with what he was dealing with in Wakanda.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
very well could.
So you see the movie, let me know what you think.
Yeah, and well, I'm trying to think. And Civil War, the Black Panther doesn't, like the costume doesn't show up at all. It's just the...
Doesn't it?
Now I really want to go back and rewatch Civil War just so
I need to go back and see that.
I mean,
I've got the DVD around here somewhere.
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've seen it, so but yeah, that'll be awesome. I'm excited for this. I'm excited to watch these all like that, and got to make sure that I remember to watch all the little teasers and post credits and mid-credit scenes and everything. So
yeah, there's a mid-credit and a post-credit scene at the end of Black Panther.
Good to know. For those of you that haven't gone and seen it yet, there you go. Make sure you stick around through the stuff.
Depending on your theater, I don't know if they do the same trailers, but every movie that I'm excited to see coming up, the trailer was playing before Black Panther.
Oh, nice.
So the Han Solo movie, Deadpool, Ant-Man and Wasp. The only one that was missing was Infinity War. But everything else is like, holy cow. Because there was, see, for the Marvel movies, there was Ant-Man and Wasp, Deadpool. Isn't there a third? I guess the third one this year is Infinity Wars, besides Black Panther. Mm-hmm. And then the Han Solo movie, it seemed like there was another one. Oh, Mission Impossible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, holy cow, these are some good trailers.
Is Ant-Man and Wasp, is that this year? Is that 2018?
I think it is.
Oh. Now we're going to have to the Googles.
To the Batcave. Yeah, it says 2018.
There you go. I did not realize that.
July 6th.
Well, and then we also you also have the this is kind of a perfect segue into the Venom teaser that came out a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, and the Venom teaser was also there.
Was it in that one too?
Yes.
So here's the thing that I thought was really funny in watching that. Well, one, the Venom teaser looks really good. We might as well talk about it now. It looks really good. The tone looks a little darker than your normal, than the Spider-Man movies. I am curious because Sony still owns Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a Sony presentation. Marvel's got their hands in it because of the agreement, I'm assuming, that allowed Spider-Man into Civil War. But what I thought was funny is Fox is the one that owns Deadpool. And there were a couple scenes, and they were generic scenes, in both the Deadpool trailer and the Venom teaser that were like straight, almost identical. They were generic, like a body falling into the water. But I just laughed because I'm like, this is two separate companies. It'd be one thing if it was like the same company made both trailers and you're just like, oh, that's kind of funny. They have the same, like, they've got the same scene that they just stole from whatever that they've just made it once and then have just regurgitated it over other trailers because it fits. But these are two completely different companies, and the angle at which the shot was, where there was a body falling into the water, it could have just been anybody. It didn't have to be there was no costume on the person or anything like that. It was just a person. It was an unrecognizable person falling into the water. But I'm just like, when I saw it in the Venom trailer, when I was watching them, I was watching them on where somebody had gone and taken all these clips and put them together, like all the trailers together. So there was like the Han Solo trailer, the Venom trailer, the Deadpool trailer, Infinity War trailer, Mission Impossible, like all these big movies that were coming out this year, and took them and put them all together so I could just watch these trailers back to back to back. And it happened to be that the Venom trailer and the Deadpool trailer were back to back. And when that scene came up in each of them, I'm like, wait a second, I just saw that. Which trailer am I watching again? like, what? Wait a second. I'm like, that was a complete ripoff, and I thought that was funny. So, watch them. Go back and watch the two of them and find those little funny things.
I'm going to have to do that.
But what did you think about Venom? You excited for a Venom movie?
I am excited about it, and for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a big fan. I liked him in Mad Max, and I'm trying to think of that crappy movie. It wasn't a crappy movie. It's the one with Shia LaBeouf.
You're going to have to narrow it down. He did a lot of crappy movies.
Well, Tom Hardy's been in a bunch of stuff. He has. Yeah, man, it was like Prohibition era. They played a bunch of brothers.
Oh.
Yeah, I liked him in that. Holy cow. I'm getting old. I can't remember shit.
Yeah, I'm
Lawless.
yes, Lawless.
Lawless. He played like the elder brother, but he kind of played it almost like he was autistic and all this other stuff. I thought it was really good. So I'm excited for it because of Tom Hardy, for one.
Yeah.
And for two, it's freaking Venom.
Yeah.
I want to see how they pulled this off.
Well, and I want to see what they do with it. I want to see, do they take it? Is this going to be, because Venom has been in the comic books for a long time, and he has been the bad of bad guys, almost Joker-ish bad guy for Spider-Man, and then in the comic books he even went and turned into a good guy and was,
The teaser kind of alludes that he's a good guy.
Well,
did you notice that?
Yeah. But I want to know, like, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean how that has to be how the movie starts.
This is true. This is very true.
And is this the trailer, since it's just a teaser, doesn't have any rating to it. The movie doesn't have a rating yet. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna, this could be a type of movie where they push that PG-13 limit and maybe get like maybe get really, really close to an R rating and tone it down just enough to get that PG-13, or, do they, I mean, they could go R with this. I mean, it could almost be a psychological thriller type R rated movie. I mean, because the whole idea, I mean, the whole thing with Venom was that the symbiote is, like, it's controlling his mind. It's causing him to basically have a split personality disorder. And they could really play that up. And I kind of hope that they do. But I don't know that they will. I'm excited to see what they do.
Right now, there's no synopsis on IMDb.
Nope.
There's no plot on IMDb, which is pretty typical for being, it's not till October.
Right.
So they're not going to give anything away. But I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too. So, I don't know. I guess we'll just see what happens. But we'll have to wait a little bit longer for an actual official trailer to see what they come up with. We should probably... This wouldn't be Geekvice if we didn't talk about a board game. And we have not talked about your board game challenge in what I feel like is a long time. So let's hear, Kip, where are you at with your board game challenge?
Well, so I have 5 games to play 10 times each, so 50 plays.
Yep.
I managed to get my 6th play in last Friday. So I'm not jumping on this very quickly, but I'm doing all right.
Well, hold on now, because so we're looking at, there's 52 weeks in the year. And you need 50 plays.
Yep.
And we are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 weeks into the year, and you've got 6 plays. That's not all bad.
I'm still on target.
Yeah, you could still do this.
But
you just might need to double up here coming soon.
Yeah. One of the games I've played once. One of the games I've played 4 times. Another game I've played once, and 2 of them hadn't touched at all.
Which one have you played 4 times, just out of curiosity?
The Shadows over Camelot that we talked about.
Yep.
So this last Friday, we managed to get in a game of Shadows over Camelot. We finally won.
Nice.
Going away, I think we kind of figured out from our mistakes. We had a trader, but she was new to the game and really didn't know how to do it. So it was a non-factor.
Right.
So I'm hoping next time there is a trader and it's somebody who knows how to play the game. So could make it interesting. So We did get one game played for the first time on the challenge, and that is Viticulture. I just happen to have the box right here. Pretty thick box. Size of my fist.
Yeah.
See, it's a pretty thick box. It is a Stonemaier Games game. If anybody's familiar with, and it's designed by Jamie Stegmaier. So if anybody's played his games such as Scythe and oh man, what's that futuristic game? Brain is just not working. But his signature is their worker placement with you're trying to build something or produce something or take over, like in Scythe, take over the map kind of thing. And his style is always you have to combine things together to create a bigger thing. So like viticulture, you have to plant vines, harvest the vines, crush the grapes to turn into wine. So you've got to combine all these steps to get to wine, and then you can sell your wine based on orders that you receive through cards. And just like a Stegmaier game, there are upgrades to things that you can do based on structures that you purchase. So all of his games are this way. You start off and you can do everything on the board for the most part. Then you have to work your way up into getting to do the things you actually want to do in the first place. So wine, you want to sell wine. Well, to be able to sell wine, you need grapes. So the first thing you have to do is get vines, you know. And then, all right, to be able to plant these certain vines, you need certain structures to be able to do that. So now you've got to work it up and get enough cash to build these structures so you can finally plant these vines. And then once you do that, you have to have the right cards and be able to put your player in the right place to be able to harvest these vines and age the grapes and then get the wine and age the wine. And it sounds convoluted. It's really not. It's just it's like leveling up a character. It really is. I mean, viticulture is actually pretty simple. The rules can be a little intimidating. They're, if I can find a page number on here, 20 pages. It seems like it's a lot, but once you get in there and play it, all the rules are basically on the board or on your player board.
Okay.
And just like any Stegmaier game, I ended up with way more baggies than I needed.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to dig out the board here. So everybody's got a player board like such.
Okay.
And on it is your fields for planting, your what's called crush pad that you harvest your grapes to, and then you crush them in the crush pad and you put them in your storage areas to hold the wine to sell. Just like anything else in this game, storage, you have one small cellar, and you can hold up to a red wine or a white wine up to value 3. To go beyond that, which most of your orders are going to ask for, you're going to need a medium cellar to large cellar, so you have to earn the money to buy those, you know. So, again, leveling up your character, if you will.
Right.
And the board is just a basic, it's not a very big board. It's just a 4-fold.
Okay.
And it has spots to place your workers. And depending on how many player a game you have, depends on how many spaces are open to play. Each area has 3 spots, and if you're only playing with 3 players, I think only 2 spots are in use. 2 players, only 1 of the spots are in use. So if somebody picks a spot and you wanted that spot, you're SOL.
Right.
You have to wait. So this actually takes place by seasons. All 4 seasons are in play. The first season is everybody gets. See if I can dig one out here. I'm just happy the thing didn't spill all over the place. That's unusual. Of course not. Nothing's easy to find. Nope. Anyway, everybody gets a token that looks like a rooster. Ah, found one. Ta-da!
Rooster.
White, so it's hard to see. So, of course, we joke around saying, okay, in the spring, you pick where to put your cock. And there's this table that goes up to 7. There's a first player token, and that person starts off placing their rooster on the board, and they're numbered. So if you place it in position number 1, that means you get to place your workers first, but there's no bonus for placing there. And then the bonuses get better as you go down. Like if you want to be last, number 7, you get an extra worker to place. You'd be the only one with that many workers. If you want to be number 6, you get a victory point. And of course, this game is victory point driven.
Of course.
First one to 20 triggers the end of the game. You finish the round. Whoever has the most victory points wins. So sometimes you just want to whore yourself out for victory points. And then other spots are like one spot gives you a lira. Other spots let you draw cards. And once that's done, then we just go in order as we placed our roosters on here. And it's like first player on the list places their worker on a spot on the board. Some of the spots are you play a yellow visitor card, which gives you like little special things you can do. Sometimes it's like trade in 3 cards, get some victory points, or on this turn, you don't have to place a character in your field. You can just go ahead and plant, that kind of thing. So you could play one there. One, you can just place it, and you get to draw cards that have your vines on them that you can plant later. There's one where you can sell grapes that you already own, or you can even sell one of your fields if you're really strapped for cash. And then that part of placing in the yellow spaces is summer. Then we move to fall, which the only thing that happens in fall is you draw a visitor card. And then winter starts, and then there's a whole another half of the board where you can place workers again. But the workers you placed in the summer stay there until the end of the year. So if you exhausted all your workers in the summer, you've got nobody to place in the winter.
Ooh, okay.
So there's some resource management that goes on. It sounds complicated, but once you get to looking at it, it's not too bad. What really happens is you go in with no strategy whatsoever, to be truthful, because you don't know what cards you're going to draw for vines, what cards you're going to draw for the wines you need to produce to sell. So honestly, you could come in and say, oh, I'm going to plant a bunch of white wine grapes, and then you get your stuff and it's like, oh, all I have is red wines to sell, so I better change my strategy and start getting red wine grapes and things like that. So not super strategic at the beginning. You have to kind of morph your strategy as you go and how cards are getting played and where people place their workers to take up, maybe all the spots you're taking on the one thing you wanted to do in the winter, like harvest or something like that. So you got to go, oh, well, shit, I can't do that. I'm going to have to do something else and try to figure out the best move. So maybe the next winter, when you get to that point, you're in a better position. Even though the strategy is a moving target, even though there's all this upgrades to get to do anything you want, it's not a super long game.
Really?
It probably takes a little over an hour to play.
Okay. That's not too bad.
and that is partially teaching the game. I think if you had a bunch of people who've played the game before and all you have to do is set up and go, and things went without incident, you'd probably knock it out in 45 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
No, that's not
And
bad at all.
and like all Stonemaier games, it has a one-player variant
Okay.
where they have some, I'm going to butcher this word, I don't know, cards in there that lets the game play, the board play against you. So,
Right.
yeah. It's 1 to 6 players, so you can get a pretty good sized group together, or you can play by yourself. It's up to you.
So so you said that you go through, like, you're going through seasons. Is there a set number of years that you go through? You know, like you go through the seasons 3 times, or is it really just
It's victory points.
it's you could get victory points within, you know, with the first, you could get victory points within the first year if everything goes exactly as planned, and you could be done, you know, before you even hit to the next spring, right?
Right. So you could have as many number of years as it takes for somebody to reach 20 victory points. But once you reach 20 victory points, all you do is finish out that year, and then the game is over.
Gotcha.
So the first person to reach 20 may not be the person who wins the game. You know, it could just be happen they got to 20. It's like, all right, everybody finish out their season and your year. And it just happens to be somebody was like, haha, I'm getting ready to fulfill all these orders. So now I just bypassed you. It can happen.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of strategy there. You kind of got to watch where everybody else is at and what they're doing. So just in case you don't want to trigger the end game too soon. I haven't played a game where that's happened yet. The game we played on Friday, the guy who never had played before seemed to be getting screwed at every turn. Every time he wanted to do something, somebody took his spot. He ended up beating us pretty badly.
Was that Jason?
What's that?
Was that Jason?
No, it was not Jason, surprisingly.
That sounds like something Jason, like, would happen to Jason. Like,
well, Jason was the one that was always messing with this guy, like taking his spot. And then that guy ended up beating us. So, but it's a fun game. I like the game a lot. It's a little, when you're first reading the rules, it's a little intimidating. Like, holy crap, there's a lot of moving parts to this thing. But once you realize all the rules are on the board, it's pretty easy to pick up.
yeah.
It's like, okay, I have 3 workers I can place. I placed my cock here, so I go third, and I place my workers, in order and do the thing that I placed my worker on. That's pretty much it.
No, that works. Well, and it's kind of funny, not to be outdone by you playing board games. I was able to get a game in just today, this afternoon. I had already mentioned that I played Mice and Mystics with my youngest son. Well, when we had some time this afternoon, and I was like, you know what? I looked at Reese and I'm like, hey, you know all those really long board games that we have sitting down in the basement, that are sitting on the shelf down there? Like, we got enough time, we could actually play one of those. He goes, ooh. So we went down, and what did he bring up? Battleship Galaxies.
Nice.
So we just played the first mission, because we wanted to, I kind of like the whole last man standing type battle, I'm sure the other missions are really cool, and we'll have to try them at some point, but I really like the battleship idea of, no, it's my fleet against your fleet. And I think what I'd like to do is actually use a few more of the cards and maybe kind of create my own little mission and use a little bit more of the stuff, because we didn't use all of, if you follow the directions of the mission, you only use a certain number of ships. I'd like to either change it out and use some different ones or use more. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And kind of like what you said with Viticulture, you know, learning the game requires so much additional time, but Battleship Galaxies, we'd already played it once before. And so jumping in and starting to play, we're like, oh, I remember that. Okay, I remember what you. So you just did a little refresher on it, and we actually were able to play through. I think we played through the full thing in just a little over an hour, maybe hour and a half. So again, not too bad, and
Not bad at all.
it was a little bit closer than Reese thought it was going to be when I wiped out a couple of his rather hefty, strong ships early on. But I think the most fun that I had was when we were done playing the game after I beat him, which he beat me last time, so I beat him this time. We're even. After we got done playing, sitting down and discussing the strategy on what he did and how he put some of his guys out and how I used some of my guys, and when I put out some of my stronger ships, I think kind of that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of open his eyes to some of the strategy involved, and his strategy was to come out swinging really hard and take one of his better ships and put it out up front. But when you do that, that's the only ship that can be attacked. You're going to get attacked. So
exactly,
you need some fodder out there to take the shots so that you can be protected. And so.
Well, I'm glad you guys are getting good use out of that game. I think that is a game that is rife for, if somebody's good at board game design, could really create interesting alternative ways to play that game.
Yeah. Oh, the game is, the fundamentals of that game are so smooth and simple. That thing is ripe for expansions, and I know we've talked about it before that, you had kind of hoped that there was going to be some expansions for this thing, and it never ended up happening.
Right.
I still, there's a comic book in there that Reese started looking through. He's like, oh, the back page shows that there's another comic book, and he's like, oh, Dad, we need to find the other comic book to this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think they ever made it, buddy. They never made any expansions for this or sequels or anything. And he's like, well, that's a shame. I'm like, yes, it is. So
yeah, that game came out before, I think, the Battleship movie.
Yeah.
And if they would have tied it to that movie, I think the game would have done a whole lot better, because it's called Battleship, turned people off. They didn't realize it was not a game where you yell A5 and then put a peg in.
Yeah.
It's actually fairly...
It's got some depth to it, man.
It has a little bit of depth to it, yeah. And
the replayability is there's so much more replayability with Battleship Galaxies than there is with just a regular game of Battleship, because regular game of Battleship, you just do the same thing over and over. You can have different ships, you get different different weapon upgrades and ship upgrades that you can put on your ship that changes the way the game can be played and changes what you can do. That I think that thing is a load of fun, and I'm glad that he picked it out, because I was hoping he would, because I can't really play it by myself. So
no, unfortunately you can't.
That is definitely one of those games you cannot play. There is no one-player variant for that one. Hiding things behind a screen so you don't know what ships are out there is kind of important. So that is what we have for this week. You got anything else you want to throw out there?
I think next week we should, if you get to see Black Panther.
Yeah.
I think we should get more in depth on that. And
Yes.
I also saw in the show notes you wanted to talk a little bit of Olympics, which we didn't talk about, so maybe we can sneak that in as well.
We'll slip that in. Olympics is still going on, and really the bigger thing is just trying to stream the Olympics because I don't have cable, so I don't have the channel to be able to flip them on, or all the different channels, because it's just like, NBC owns all of it, so it's like on CNBC and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
we will talk more about that next week. We will talk about Black Panther next week, because I'm going to say that we're going to talk about it next week because I really want to go see it, and so I'm going to have to do something to make that happen. So next week, tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's right.
Right? All right, so that's where we're going to put a cut in here. You can check out our blog at geekvice.blogspot.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekvice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at tiny.cc/geekvice. And you can follow us on Twitter. That man over there, at Kip Killigan. You can follow me at Geekvice. And, of course, as always, you can reach us by email at geekvice@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone, for listening to our ramblings, and we will see you next week.
Later.
This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.